Welcome all to another episode of TurinGiants Presents the Scoop, or as has been expressly requested by our listeners, The Beautiful Bald Bastard Show, a program about cutting through all the noise of the Juventus transfers and rumors and such, and give you a little dose of truth of what's really happening behind the scenes. My name is Zach, and as always, I'm joined by Frederic. How's it going, man?
Hi, man. It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing great, albeit uh, sweating a lot in the unbearable heat of a Texas summer. But before we continue, we know that everyone only really wants to hear the jingle, so we'll front load it. Frederic, we'll front load it for
Might I
everybody.
might I add, I specifically shaved my head today just for the beautiful intro and the kind of new theme involving the scoop. So
No, for anyone watching on YouTube or on Spotify video, you can see on both of our heads a lovely sheen. Um,
amazing.
you polished up the dome there, and we are good to go. Myself, and of course,
And now, Freddy Scoops with the scoop. He's the best in the business, see?
alrighty, we have I think a slightly
Gets me.
shorter, yeah, every time, right? I think we have a slightly shorter itinerary. We'll jump into it. And I think what we'll do at the end is we'll touch on some opinions. I mean, we often do not share too much of what we actually feel about the potential moves that we're reporting on this program. Most of it's about leveraging Frederic's inside context to report on kind of what's happening more as a factual basis than an opinion show. But I think we'll have some time. So there have been some comments both on YouTube and on Instagram about some of the people that we've been linked with. And so I think we'll take some time at the end to touch on this, and we encourage y'all. We want to hear and continue to hear your opinions. Reply to us, comment to us on YouTube, or send messages to Instagram at TurinGiants, because we do read them and we'll continue to engage with them as we move forward with the show. Alrighty, so let's jump into our potential departure list. And we have to start with Timothy Weah and Samuel Mbangula. The last couple days, there have been reports just left, right, and center about this extremely, in my opinion, insulting combo offer from the EPL that Juventus seemingly was entertaining, Frederic. So what's the status of Timothy Weah and Samuel Mbangula?
Well, they're both linked, or they were linked, but now not so much because our good friend Tim has made it quite clear that he has no desire to play for Nottingham Forest at this time. Whereas Mangula is set to leave, will likely accept the offer of Nottingham Forest because, as I said previous episodes ago, Samuel wants playing time. So I could see that happening, and I think for him, Nottingham Forest is an ideal stepping stone. But Timothy Weah said on convincing Tudor that he has a role within the team. Um, but I also feel that if a team with a little bit more prestige comes knocking, that he might be persuaded to take the high ground and leave. So I put Timothy, in my opinion, as warm for departure, whereas I would put Samuel for red hot because I think it's all but done for Mbangula to leave Juventus.
Do you think Forest will sort of decouple the deal and offer one for Mbangula individually?
Well, I think Juventus have made it very clear that they want to monetize on Weah, but make no mistake, if we sell them both, it's all plusvalenza, it's all profit. And these are two players that Tudor's made very clear that they have no um, playing. We will have little to no playing time within the squad, and he prefers alternatives. So I can see people coming from, it's kind of low transfer fee and whatever. But on the other hand, we need to bring players in, and in order to do that, we need to move some of the players as well. So it's a knife that cuts at both ends, in my opinion.
All right, let's move on to the next guy. Chico Conceição has been in previous episodes uh, moving up the likelihood that he stays, as opposed to at the beginning of these scoop episodes, it was likely that he was going to go. Where do we stand on him?
I think the chances of Chico staying are very high, so I'd put him as cold. with regards to a potential departure. And why is that? Also because our good friends at our Portuguese team. They've made it clear that they are willing to do some kind of a trade or involve a player to lower the amount that Juventus will have to fork out. The last I heard is that they denied a multiple payment plan for the 30 millions they asked. They
Mhm.
don't do discounts. They don't do how do you call it, separate fees or what have you not. But they are willing to potentially embrace a swap deal, and Juventus has a lot of players returning from loan, which we do not know if Tudor sees them fit to be started. So there is some potential there, but Juventus will do everything they can to make Chico Juventus player.
Is Porto interested in one Artur Melo by chance, Frederic? Any chance?
Uh, you basically asked the same question I asked my source, and I just got a smiley back. And the second reply was, "Let's fucking hope so." So
No, so that's a no.
sorry for the swear words, but no, but I think we have a number of players. Don't forget, we still have Jallo. We have another center back, I think. Another Gonzalez. I
Kundo
think.
Gonzalez and Thiago Jallo are two center backs that I know were loaned out.
Yeah.
Those who you're thinking of?
My gut feeling points me in that direction, but you never know. I mean, it could very well be another player who's worth potentially more than Conceição, which they can make a deal with. So it's hit and miss, but I'm pretty sure that whatever the turnout will be, I think Chico will be a Juventus player in all effects.
Alrighty. Our Club World Cup captain is next on the list, Weston McKennie.
Yes, and Weston is on that list because I officially got word today that his renewal deal fell through, collapsed, because I think I stated that in April or March on the TurinGiants podcast that he was asking for about close to 4 million euros net for a renewal, which Comoli is not likely to fork out. So the chances are that either he will play out his contract or he will be sold. And if I'm Juventus and I'm the financial director, I'd rather sell him in order to get some money in for the coming transfer period. So I think the chances of Weston leaving fairly soonish are very hot. Or hot, I'm sorry.
You know, we've got a likelihood that Timothy Weah, Samuel Mbangula, and Weston McKennie leave. And then you just talked about how Porto is approaching selling Conceição. I'd like to see Juventus kind of have the stones to draw a pretty aggressive line in the sand like Porto does with us regarding Chico, as opposed to some of these cut rate prices that we've been linked to. So that's just a little dose of my thoughts, and hopefully Kamoli can do better than what Juntili did last year in terms of
Yeah,
accepting low balls just to get rid of folks. Now
I
the
agree
next,
with you wholeheartedly. Sorry.
yeah, you're good. The next name on the list,
You
why
know,
in God's green earth would Keenan Yildiz be on a departure list?
well, he isn't on the departure list per se, but we received an official offer from a Premier League club. I don't know the club. My source didn't either, or wasn't that interested in telling me specifically. But we rejected the offer worth 73 million euros. And Alcon has made it very clear that he does not want to sell Yildiz for any amount of money. And Kenan himself expressed gratitude. He wants to stay at Juventus. And I think that soon after our World Cup adventure finishes, we'll finally put some ink on paper concerning his renewal. So, but I felt that it was my duty to tell the folks that we rejected because we get a lot of grief. You know, the management gets a lot of grief. Like, well, we sell players for two bananas and a folding chair. Okay, but now we have a real potential. I mean, 73 million euros is not chump change, but we rejected that. And I think it's, kudos to the management for believing in him and renewing his contract soon.
Needless to say, there we put him on the list simply to let everyone know that the chance of him leaving is ice cold.
Yes.
Well, the next player, I think a lot of people wish the opposite. Dusan Vlahovic. Last time, I
Yeah,
think we reported his departure as red hot. Has anything
yeah.
changed?
The fact of the matter of his potential departure hasn't, so I'd still put him as red hot. But I do know for a fact that Manchester United are very interested in him once more. I mean, if you're a Juventus fan, you're stressing. We're both bald. We lost our hair. We're stressing. But look at Manchester United, and suddenly a smile appears on your face. Like they are the only club in the world that managed to pull out more stunts than we do. So, pretty please, Dusan, if you're listening, just go over to Manchester. It's shit climate, shit food, but yeah, what you're gonna do?
They'll pay him a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah, yep, yep.
So,
And
so, so you're talking about Manchester United specifically in light of the first name on our potential arrivals list. So let's
yes,
switch on over to that page and connect the dots between Dusan Vlahovic's red hot departure and the first name on our potential arrivals list. Another name that has been buzzing around the social media verse with regards to Juventus, Jadon Sancho.
yes, Jadon Sancho was close to being a Juventus player last season. Very, very close, like I said in a previous cast. And he's still interested in joining Juventus, and Juventus is still interested in acquiring his services. And therefore, with the ongoing talks between United and Juventus about Vlahovic, an idea arose about a possible swap deal once again, because balance wise, with financial fair play in mind, this would be um, a huge advantage for both clubs, of course, because as Sancho as well as Vlahovic have pretty hefty salary fees. And if they can cut out a potential transfer fee, then it would be a win-win for both clubs. So let's see how that evolves in the coming days. I don't expect that to go on for any longer period of time. I think Sancho has his options ready. So I'd put him at warm at this point.
Now he's somebody I said we were going to touch on some opinions at the end of the show. I think we'll have some time. I think we're going to start with our opinions on that particular move because we've seen clearly in the comments on YouTube as well as on Instagram and across various platforms and folks have a lot of opinions, mostly negative, about the potential arrival of Jadon Sancho. So we'll touch on that at the end of this show. Before we do that, we got a few more names on our potential arrivals list. Jonathan David being the next one up. We made a scoop of the day with regards to him because his ice coldness from a couple of weeks ago has changed. Explain one more time for us why and where we stand with regards to him.
Well, it's pretty simple. His management contacted Comoli personally and said, "Look, we're trying to resolve this issue because Juventus didn't want to push the transfer through because of the ridiculous um, signature bonus they required for Jonathan David and his management. It was almost 25 million for a free player, which Juventus opted not to do. They retraced their steps. They came back on and say, hey, let's sit around the table because Jonathan really wants to be a Juventus player. Let's see what we can work out. So there's interest from both parties. There's basically an opening that was created by Jonathan David's management. And he was very much on the list. So I'd put him as hot. I think we'll see some development soon.
I mean, do you think he called up his agent and said, "Come on, man, make this happen"? I mean, I don't see any other circumstance where the agent would come back to the team, tail between their legs, so soon, offering a discount.
I think his management was a bit how shall I put this? Surprised by the fact that they didn't have that many other offers. I mean, it's good to, set your standards if you have 10, 12 clubs lining up for you. But once you
Mhm.
notice that that isn't the case and your requests are, let's just tell it how it is, ridiculous, then I can imagine a player, getting through this management saying, "Come on, guys. I mean, I need a transfer. I need something, to keep me in the race. I need something with a bit more prestige, and I don't want to move to Turkey or Saudi Arabia. I want to stay in Europe. I want to play Champions League." So in that
Mhm.
request, I think you're absolutely right, Zach.
All right, the next name on our list has been on many episodes of The Scoop and is a young center back that a lot of people are really excited about, Giovanni Leone. Mr. Lyons himself. Why is he back on our list?
He is back on our list because this was a name that was basically, I won't say discovered, but the first discussions were made by our friend Giuntoli. Cooled down a bit because of the interest of bigger teams. And Parma are known for their tough negotiation skills. And Comoli decided to pursue and said, hey, we got two options. Why not, buy Leone and loan him out back to you guys again? Or option number two, we'll swap with one player, and my gut feeling says that's Rugani.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
So
sense. Yeah.
nothing confirmed, but that's just my gut feeling. And we'll give you the option to buy a next gen player for the coming season. So basically, you're providing Parma and their needs of giving them an experienced player and an up and coming talent, or you either say you can keep the player we want, you can let them, mature a bit and get you those points you might well need coming season,
Mhm.
and we'll also give you money. So it's in the interest of Parma to act fairly quickly.
So, what is the likelihood that Leone joins?
I'd say, giving a bit of context with the messaging with my source up and down, and the use of emojis, because my source is very, very sensible and very, at times, serious person. And when he starts using emojis, it's either down the shitter or it's going to be close to a done deal. And his emojis were fairly positive. So I'd put our good friend Giovanni Leone at hot as Jonathan David.
That's some you know we're real journalists here when we're basing our opinions on interpreting
Emo-
emojis.
yes, yes. This is all factual, all science based. I mean,
No, you understand why he's playing coy. Um, Leone, it's hard to predict anything too because Leone's interest has a lot of interest from a bunch of other teams too. So
yes.
we might be moving forward and want to bring him in, but we can't necessarily control what other teams are doing, and that his agent is seeing a blood in the water, and so he's calling everybody. Well, Juventus is offering this. Hey, what can you do? And to try to run up the price, right?
I have to add to that. I forgot to mention that
Hmm.
Juventus has told his manager, okay, this is our offer, as well to the player, to the agent, and Parma, and we won't pursue anymore in this going back and forth thing.
Okay.
So if the player wants Juventus, we're prepared to make a substantial investment, but the back and forth thing has got to end. So, and that's a good sign because I mean, coming into it, we lost a lot of time pursuing
Hmm.
gold miners last season. Now we're a bit more sturdy and firm, and we're saying, okay, either he joins and we pay the price you guys want, or we'll figure something out. But if not, I mean, we'll move back to another option, and I like that personally.
All right. The next name on our list is has cited both Juventus and Roma as potential destinations. We have Flamengo's right back, Wesley.
Yes, Wesley came into play. There have been some contacts, but nothing too profound. This is another story of his manager trying to flog him all around Europe. And Juventus and Roma were some of the teams that responded like, okay, tell us more. We might be intrigued. But there's some other teams. I heard Ajax, which I don't know if he'll be interested in, but that's a name that I heard, and Tottenham Hotspur. So these are the four teams at the moment that are interested or potentially interested in the right back. But up until this moment, there hasn't been any profound argumentation or meetings happening. So I put personally him at room temperature.
Alrighty, one name to go, and I think this one has not been reported anywhere, so it's appropriate before we jump into the next name to play the drop.
And now, Freddy Scoops with the scoop. He's the best in the business, see?
Alrighty, we have our next name, Manchester City's Bernardo Silva. What's the story
Yeah,
here?
Well, a pretty strange story, if I can put it like that. But what happened? Well, Bernardo Silva extended his contract till next year with our good friends at Manchester City, and he made it very clear that he won't renew that further. So he's looking for a new club. Juventus desperately trying to bring in some leadership, asked via Jorge Mendes, who is very into tune with Juventus, as a number of players there as well, if there was a possibility that Bernardo Silva might be able to join Juventus or is interested to joining Juventus already this season. There hasn't been like a positive answer to that for the season that we are approaching now. But Jorge Mendes made it very clear that he would like to see Bernardo Silva in Juventus colors, and that's something that could happen when he's a free agent. Now, keep in mind, Jorge Mendes is a very big agent, so if he does a favor for your club, the chances are that your club has to do a number of favors for him as well.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. But the last news I heard is that Bernardo Silva is charmed by eventually joining Juventus as a free agent, but he has asked not to talk about this season yet, as he wants to assess the Club World Cup adventure and see where that takes him. And some context around a possible transfer is also the fact that Bernardo Silva is very much frustrated by the fact that Kevin De Bruyne left, because they were pretty much very good buddies on field and off field as well, and they had that kind of chemistry. If you look back at some of the games, and he feels that it's time to look up a new team or a new adventure, whatever. And Italy was a country or a league that was high on his list. So I mean, there are certain dots that we can connect. So I put him at room temperature for now, but it's something to keep an eye out. And I felt it. I had to report this because it wasn't reported anywhere else. And one of my favorite players as well. I think Bernardo Silva is one of the best midfielders that roam the earth now. So yeah, let's see where it goes. But there's been some talks. There's our good friend Jorge Mendes in between, which could always lead to something.
Well, we're here to provide all y'all listeners with that sort of insight. And should anything develop on that end, we'll of course keep you posted. But keep this name in the back of your mind over the next, maybe this summer, over the course of this next year, as a potential new acquisition for Juventus. Well, that kind of brings us to the end of our the names. It was a shorter episode. Not much has happened other than those couple deals or potential deals we highlighted since our last episode. Let's take the next 5 or so minutes, Frederic, to comment on a lot of feedback and opinions that we've received on some of the names that have appeared on the show. Obviously, the show's more of a sort of a fact-based delivery program where we provide you with what Frederic hears from his sources within the organization. Not so much opinions, but we have the time, and so I think we should touch on it. And so some of the comments we've had, like shout out Thomas, who was really discouraged by the names on our rivals list as not really looking like good deals from a money standpoint or sporting standpoint. Josh specifically has said that he doesn't want to see Sancho here, as a lot of folks on Instagram had as well. And so I guess I'll kind of cue up the discussion with regards to the potential rivals with a more general question, Frederic. So if we kind of fast forward and make some assumptions here, like Jonathan David is going to be our striker next to Colomwani, whose loan is extended. We bring in Sancho, who with Chico and Yildiz are kind of the three competing for the 210 spots in Tudor style. We bring in Wesley from Flamengo to be our right back ahead of Costa, and we bring in maybe Leone, we'll say, to mix in with our three-man back, a center back field. If we bring these guys in, these folks that we're linked with, is our team, in your opinion, materially better than it was this past season? Or is it really just a lateral move in terms of quality?
In my opinion, the team will be better because last season, and you and I, we were discussing this like during all the TurinGiants podcast. We lack two things: depth and quality. And you're seeing now with the names that are being provided or coming out in the media or whatever, that we're searching for that depth to have like a bench with substantial good players, a mix of I wouldn't say older players, but experienced players, younger players that already have a certain potential of reach a certain level. So, in my opinion, that's a good thing. But, and this is the big issue, it's up to Tudor to make the team gel. And that's something that Mota couldn't do, despite of the fact that we spent a humongous amount of money. We chose to chase names because Cop Minus was a name. We never once stopped and think, hey, will this guy fit into this system or the system we have in mind? So the way we are approaching this transfer market is a bit more cautious than we did last season, but you could see that there's a pattern developing. There's a plan behind it. So, in my opinion, this is something that's positive. It's up to Tudor once again to make it gel. But Sancho had an awful season. Let's be real. He had a
An
very,
awful
very
few seasons, in my opinion.
yeah.
I don't think he's been good since he left Dortmund.
No, no, no. But you never know. This is the type of player that, with the right surroundings, the right coach, the right teammates, could potentially be another star signing. We don't know. What
But are
are
you
we
betting
trying to
over
do
the
now?
odds? Are you betting over the odds? I mean, because we're going to have to be, he's going to be one of our most, or maybe our highest paid player, right? Just by virtue of his salary demands. Um, are we saddling ourselves potentially with another, Dushan scenario where we got a guy who drastically underperforms his financial impact?
I feel this is something I asked my source as well because I don't like Sancho as a player. I'm gonna be very honest with you guys. But my sources made it very clear that there will be some sort of contingency plan in his contract. So done are the days of giving people a bucket ton of money just because of the name or their status or whatever. There will be some sort of contingency plan with a unilateral agreement to, how shall I put it, terminate the contract in case of this, and this, and this.
Hmm.
So we're kind of cautious as a club right now, but we're willing to take a few chances. Do I see Sancho developing into the next Del Piero reincarnation? No. Will he add some value? Yes. That's what we need: added value and squad depth, in my opinion.
Well, he better be valuable. I mean, 25-year-old guy on high wages needs to play regularly and have a significant impact. That's why we would get him. Which leads me to a second question: is Jadon Sancho would come in to play next to Yildiz, right? And so if you bring in a guy like Sancho to play next to Yildiz on predictably high wages, you would expect him to start. Do you still spend 30 million or so, or some sort of exchange like you explained to bring in Chico to mix in with those guys, or now are you over leveraged at the attacking midfield spot in your opinion?
Well, I would have, especially because this is the fact that United and the Sancho's team and Conceição's team are open to swap deal. That changes everything because you don't have a transfer fee that will weigh on your balance sheet. You have a win-win, and you
Okay.
could basically revigorize or revitalize a certain player in key aspects where you lack that squad depth. Because if we look back at the season we just had, there were so many times that we were spent around the 60th or 70th minute mark, and we didn't have quality players to bring in and to decide a
Hmm.
game. And that's, all the draws, all the bare wins. Those were effects of, and indirectly, not having that depth. So I think Juventus is very well aware of the fact that, hey, we're gonna play X amount of competitions. We're gonna have a lot of games. We need that depth back, and we need to fill that with not just random people, but people with a certain quality or certain standard that we can bring out of them, or that they already provided themselves. If you look at Leone, they're asking for 30 to 40 million, which is a lot of money for an 18-year-old player, but he's somebody that could potentially be a world-class defender. So you invest that money, you bring in some sort of extra depth, but you also have a player that financially doesn't cost you that much in terms of wages, but could explode, and you can sell him in his prime if you want to, or you can keep him and make him the key figure within your team. So we're looking more, further ahead than we did last season. So we're gonna have to
Alrighty.
let the dice roll on that, I think.
Well, thank you, Frederic. We snuck in some opinions at the end of this program, but that does bring us to the end of this episode of The Scoop. Please continue to share your opinions, either on our YouTube comments or on Instagram. We do read them, and we will work them in as best as possible in our future episodes. We also are planning to do a TurinGiants post game after the City game, which will be coming up. We should hopefully have that posted tomorrow after the game. So look forward to that. And thank you, Frederic. Thank you, listeners. And until next time, as always, Forza Juve.